All right, so hello and welcome back. We're continuing our series with Baz Battles and the first Crusade series. Okay, that playlist. And we're going to be doing the Siege of Antioch on 1098. We first check out that video up there. Should be take you back to a video that we did previously on how basically the formation of the Crusades and their first battles. And now we're taking a look at Antioch. So, without further ado, let's continue.
It's October of the year 1097. The weary Crusader army approaches the walls of Antioch, a famous stronghold guarding their advance to the Holy Land, currently held by Seljuk Turks. The city's garrison is strong and sufficiently provisioned, yet Frankish commanders know that if they want to retake Jerusalem, they need to secure Antioch first. A time of fierce battles with acts of both courage and cowardice is about to begin. It's summer of the year 1097. Having successfully retaken the city of Nicaea and repelled the Turkish ambush attack near Dorylaeum, the army of the First Crusade now marches through the inhospitable Anatolian plateau. Having changed their tactics, the Seljuk Turks utilized scorched earth methods by plundering villages on their way. This soon proved to be an effective way of harming the invaders. The Crusaders suffered in the summer heat, and their supplies dwindled gradually, eventually leading to starvation.
The Wallachians did the same thing similarly by basically burning the land and poisoning wells and stuff. And it does work very effectively, especially if you have to do a long distance like they're doing, which is basically through desert and arid terrain, and you burn everything that they can't forage. Yeah, it's very effective actually. Russia does this all the time, obviously.
Despite provisioning trouble, they reached the lands inhabited by the rather friendly Christian Armenians, and their trip to their next target, the city of Antioch, was made a little less perilous.
I don't know if many people know that, but yes, they are as they were called the Kingdom of Kingdom of Scilly, Cialle, I think, and then there's a town named Sis, and yes, they are Armenians. They had Armenian knights and stuff, and it was actually a very important city next to Antioch, and it's basically in a little ditch port over here. You can see thing, a little area over here, and yeah, there was Armenian Catholics or Armenian Christians, which many people probably don't know about, especially back then.
While the main army was going along the safer route around the Taurus Range, two small detachments led by two of the younger leaders, Tancred and Baldwin, marched through the mountains hoping to gain the support of the Armenians living in Cilicia. Both got involved in
See, I was wrong. It's Cilicia. See? I'm not always right.
local politics. But while Tancred later rejoined the Crusader army, Baldwin marched east, reaching the Armenian-ruled city of Edessa. He soon realized that he could benefit from the weak position of the city's ruler, Thoros, and possibly grab some land for himself. It's unclear whether Baldwin was responsible, but Thoros was soon overthrown and killed. Subsequently, the people of Edessa chose Baldwin as their new ruler.
The king is dead. Long live the king. I mean, the count. Yeah, basically political subterfuge. You kill him and then you can take it and you can become the count of Edessa. Pretty good.
Thus, the first Crusader state, the county of Edessa, was established. But let's leave Baldwin's success and get back to the main story. The first units of the Latin army reached the outskirts of Antioch in October 1097. The city was encompassed by the Orontes River to the northwest and Mount Silpius to the southeast. Though already past its finest years, it was well defended by a formidable wall studded with countless towers built by the Emperor Justinian 400 years earlier.
Yeah, you can see how far the Byzantines got pushed back at 1097. It was 500 years, and this used to be, Byzantine stuff. And you can see Byzantine engineering works are very still impressive even today.
Additionally, a citadel was erected on top of the mountain as a last line of defense. Both natural and man-made defenses posed an intimidating prospect to the Crusaders. The Turkish garrison, counting around 5,000 men, was commanded by Yagisian, who was aware of the approaching Crusaders and gathered a large stockpile of supplies for an upcoming siege. He also requested for help to other nearby Turkish lords of Aleppo, Mosul, and Damascus. The Crusaders laid the siege on the...
Pretty good, actually, what you should do. Because before you get completely surrounded, you need to let them know you're going to get... You can't win if you're a defender and nobody's coming to help you. You're going to lose. Time's not on your side. But if you can send dispatch riders out, and that's basically what he did. Yeah, that's basically the first thing you do. Besides, obviously, close the gate.
The northwestern side of the city, trying to block just 3 out of 6 total gates, as Antioch was a considerably larger stronghold than Nicaea, and the Europeans already lost some of their numbers in previous encounters. Initially, Yagisian was expecting the Franks to storm the walls, yet when it became obvious that wouldn't happen, he began harassing separated groups with sorties.
So here, I understand why the Crusaders aren't, going across this river and blocking all the gates. But then again, I don't know their plan. The only other thing I can possibly think of is they're going to build siege engines and they're going to storm this side, because if they leave these gates open, they can continuously get supplies because they don't have any guys out here to stop them. And obviously the Turks are sorting out and doing defender stuff, which is basically killing them, and then coming back in. But if they're not blocking these gates, yeah, they're gonna keep getting supplies in. They even have the Iron Gate out here, so.
Groups with sorties. Though the Crusaders captured the nearby port of St. Simeon and were soon partially provisioned by genuine ships which arrived in November.
See, now I'm just stupid, okay? So if they did that, I will wait a little bit longer. If they did that, then yeah, it doesn't matter that they have these 3 supply. Well, it's bad to leave them open. So, but if they take this little town out here, they can't get resupply to Antioch. They could try to go through the mountain pass, but you're not going to get much supplies out there, and maybe this town. But yeah, not much supplies is probably going to come in now. But still, leaving gates open is not a very good idea.
Their foraging efforts virtually depleted all of the nearby sources of food and water. Around Christmas, the Crusader army was on the brink of starvation. To remedy this problem, Bohemond, together with Robert of Flanders, took half of the troops and marched along the Orontes, searching for supplies. Suddenly, being 3 days away from Antioch, the vanguard led by Robert accidentally encountered a 10,000-strong relief force under Dukac of Damascus, rushing to relieve the besieged city.
Yeah, that's not going to go very well.
Open battle ensued. Robert held his position firmly until Bohemond caught up and attacked the Turks. They managed to rout the enemy, but with visible losses among their own ranks, they decided to get back to Antioch. In the meantime, Yagisian saw the division of the Crusader army and caught Raymond's troops by surprise with a sudden sortie. Yet Raymond not only defended well, but also pushed the Turks back to the city, with just bad luck preventing him from taking the stronghold.
Wow, that's surprising. Yeah, if they're going to sortie out, that means if they're sorting out like that. That means they definitely had at least on par or near a total advantage to do that.
The siege continued. Winter months didn't improve food supplies, and famine damaged the morale of the Crusaders, forcing them to slaughter a good part of their horses, a status symbol for medieval knights.
Very much was. It's like the best way to describe killing a warhorse at this age is like, your house? Yeah, just burn it down. Yeah, it's that bad. Like $500,000 some dollars, close to $1 million. Yeah, burn my house down. Losing mortgages on, yeah, it's pretty bad.
Many deserted and many died from starvation. Regardless, they still occupied lands around Antioch, and with Byzantine supplies arriving at St. Simeon in February, the besiegers' provisions eventually improved. Soon, the news arrived that another Muslim relief force was en route to Antioch. Yagisian reconciled with his liege, Ridwan of Aleppo. The latter moved his army west, conquering Harim with 12,000 men, around 40 kilometers away. The European lords arranged a meeting and soon agreed to execute Bohemond's plan. The Norman commander gathered all available war horses and equipped a 700-strong heavy cavalry unit, which departed camp during the night. Bohemond took up a good position with flanks secured by the Orontes River and the lake. Yet when he saw Ridwan's army advancing, he commanded a charge, hoping to rout the unprepared Turkish forces.
That is fucking ballsy right there. That is either going to work or that is going to fail miserably. Well, only at 700 knights. It's not a lot.
Cavalrymen lined up and struck the Muslim units, dealing significant damage. But this attack wasn't enough to rout the numerically superior enemy. Bohemond then rode back to his initial position near the lake, hoping to lure the Turkish force. Indeed, Ridwan marched forward, eager to use his numbers. Yet the Norman commander prepared another devastating charge, this time with utter success. The lightly armored Turkish units could do nothing to stop such a storm, and their cohesion quickly collapsed. This was an impressive show of Bohemond's commanding ability, who wisely used his resources and routed the much larger Turkish army.
Yeah, goddamn. That is one of the cases of like, 'cause I recently did a video on some other channel of like heavy knights slamming into infantry. Um, that's usually not done, but there are cases like this case, for example. They have 700 heavily armed knights against light infantry and archers and stuff, and they hit them and they don't break the first time, and they pull back and they hit them again, and then it breaks them. With units that aren't disciplined, not formed up, not in pipe formation, yeah, you can't actually do that. So ballsy, I'll give him that. Very ballsy to do that.
Meanwhile, the English supply fleet arrived at St. Simeon with building materials, allowing the Crusaders to construct fortifications, blocking the southwestern gates. 2 additional forts closed the city's resupply routes almost completely. The defenders saw that the siege was tightening. Combined with the loss of manpower during the sorties, their morale only worsened. In April, Bohemond secretly established a contact inside the city. The Armenian captain named Feroz, who held the watch on the southwestern part of the wall, eventually agreed to let the Crusaders into the city. It's unclear what really led him to betray Yagisian, but personal animosity between the two and Bohemond's promise of wealth and position possibly convinced Feroz to give up his part of the wall. But before the plan was ready to be executed, crushing news arrived. Koboga, Atabeg of Mosul, having combined his forces with Dukak and Ridwan, was marching 35,000 men to repel the Crusaders' siege of Antioch. Bohemond asked the other lords if he could take the city unassisted, it should belong to him. Raymond, Godfrey, and the others reluctantly agreed, probably because of the lack of any better options.
Yeah, probably. Maybe they didn't know he opened the damn gate either, so.
On the 2nd of June, under the cover of darkness, Bohemond and some of his men climbed the wall and infiltrated the city using Feroz's help. Defenders of the St. George's Gate were killed, the city gates were opened, and Crusader troops poured into the city.
Yeah, that's gonna be damn effective. Yeah.
The Turkish garrison was quickly overwhelmed. Many of the civilians, both Muslim and Christians, were killed, as Latin soldiers often couldn't tell them apart. Yagisian was slain, yet his son managed to retreat to the citadel and mount a defense from there. It looked like the siege was almost over, but a few days later the first units of Koboga's army reached the line of the Orontes River. They probably could have easily ambushed the besiegers weeks earlier, yet the Seljuks attempted to take Baldwin's Edessa first. Yet the stronghold of...
That makes sense, because you're going to take Edessa and then move out here. Edessa is going to be a thorn in your side if you don't. And it is very ballsy that they're like, hey, if we let me take the city and I keep, we get in, I keep it, right? And they're like, yeah, well, we don't really have many fucking options here, because 1 month from now we're going to get flanked in the ass and die. And now they have the city, so technically they have the supplies and they have the walls to stop the 35,000 man army that's going to come and kick their ass. So.
Of Godfrey's brother stood firmly, forcing the Turkish general to abandon the plan of conquering the city and march straight to Antioch. So, while the Crusaders besieged the citadel, they were also besieged by the vast Turkish army. But
I think these double X's mean they're heavy infantry, these are light infantry, and then these are light cavalry. At least that's what I know.
Koboga didn't want to waste time and tried to assault the city immediately. Heavy fighting lasted for 2 days, yet the Crusaders managed to keep up a rugged defense. Though the Turkish storm finally stopped, the situation inside the city was dire. Provisions were depleting, the enemy was at the gates, and the defenders' morale plummeted.
Also, the fact that the defenders built these forts out here to besiege the city, and now it is being used against them. Yeah, it's not very good.
One of their last hopes was Emperor Alexius Komnenos, who finally decided to aid the Crusaders and departed Constantinople in the middle of June. Yet when the Byzantine troops camped in Phrygia, the emperor was encountered by deserting Stephen of Blois, who left the Crusader army around the time when Koboga's army arrived. Stephen informed Alexius of the Crusade's hopeless position and urged him to go back. Alexius didn't want to risk his army and neglected to march any further.
Huh. Yeah, dude running away from the first army. Remember the first army that came around? And they're like, oh, we're all fucked. Not this one. But, yeah.
Meanwhile, in the besieged city, one of Raymond's soldiers, a mystic named Peter Bartholomew, had a vision of a holy lance hidden in Antioch. Raymond was skeptical, yet they began excavations under one of the churches. When it became obvious that nothing was there, Peter jumped into the excavation and started digging with his bare hands and supposedly found the spearhead of the Holy Lance, or more likely, had the ordinary spearhead in his pouch all the time.
Yeah, that's probably what happened, more than likely. Oh, I jumped down. Oh, here's a holy lance. You can actually get this ancillary in medieval too if you hold Antioch. Yeah, makes sense actually. I like that.
The Crusade leaders didn't believe this miracle, yet pretended otherwise. A huge boost to morale occurred among the defenders.
Yeah, so the leaders are like, yeah, no, this is fucking stupid. But it does boost the morale of everyone else. And lying to do that can be very beneficial at times. This is one of those times.
And soon, after failed negotiations with Kaboga, Crusaders began preparations for a decisive battle, having to choose between death from starvation or death wielding the sword. On Monday morning of the 28th of June, after 3 days of fast, the Crusader army emerged from the city gate, carrying the Holy Lance, all on foot, as all horses were either dead or eaten.
And carrying the Holy Lance. Morale booster right there. They're probably being like, man, we're fucked either way. We'll go down fighting. Shit.
And began deployment. Kaboga didn't attack them immediately, waiting until they proceeded to an open field, so the potential for retreat to the city would no longer be possible. Turkish troops guarding the nearby gates attacked the tight Frankish formations, but were unable to break them. The Christian army consisted of well-equipped, hardened men who survived the difficulties of previous battles, marches, and sieges under the harsh but very effective general command of Bohemond.
True, and looks like all these guys are heavy infantry. And remember, all their horses are dead, so now it's a do or die kind of fucking mission right now. That can be a massive morale improvement. It's either we do or we die. So
Kaboga's army was large, but divided between jealous emirs. Thus, before he was able to fully deploy the main body of his force, smaller, uncoordinated attacks at advancing Crusaders took place. Bohemond's troops managed to repel the attackers on the front and in the rear guard.
So basically, if the emirs are sending guys in piecemeal, what is called is defeat in detail, which is like we defeat this section, then we defeat another section, then we defeat another section, and another section, okay? When you're outnumbered, which is basically what's happening here. Because if they send all these guys in against them, they're fucked. They're just fucked. There's nothing they can do. But if they can break them up and fight them individually, then yeah, they have a good chance at actually pulling this off.
The first units of the main Turkish army eventually engaged the Latin line, but soon they were losing badly and began to flee. The scattered units ran through the lines of the middle units, who, seeing running allies, quickly lost cohesion and the will to fight.
Yeah, basically, once you see the guys in the front start running, you're like, oh, I don't know if I want to be here, and fuck this. And then you start running, and then everyone starts running.
In a matter of minutes, the whole of Kaboga's army was in full rout, unable to unite and deal the one decisive blow to the desperate Christian force. This was a great, yet unexpected victory for the Crusaders.
Yeah, I'll fucking say, they'll probably be like, oh my god, what the hell? Yeah, kind of.
Soon, the citadel surrendered, and in compliance with the early agreement with the other lords, Bohemond took the city for himself, creating the Principality of Antioch. The successful siege of Antioch quickly became a celebrated event amongst the Christians. Despite huge setbacks, the crusade continued. The road to Jerusalem was now finally open.
Alright, so that's the end of that video, and then Terence Baldwin's Sicilian expedition was almost internally. Coral lands and recognition. The rivalry is so furious that some fighting between two units occurred near Taurus. Oh, see? Look at that. Though Byzantine general Tychus participated in the siege of Antioch, ooh, he did. I know the city better than you. His advice to lay a more remote siege was largely ignored. Seeing his effort was pointless, he returned back to Constantinople. Ah, so there was some Byzantine support here still. I like that. Okay. Raymond of Toulouse tried to keep his oath pledged to the Byzantine emperor and led the opposition against Bohemia's desire to become the sole ruler of Antioch. Oh, so there was someone that actually said, hey, we should actually honor our oath, but they didn't. Yeah, so that's the end of the video. So if you like this stuff, leave me a like button. Subscribe if you want this stuff. Up on your right, up on your screen should be the first part of the series that I've done, my reaction to it if you want to check it out. Otherwise, Baz's Battle stuff's all below, so is my Patreon and all of that stuff. So, until next time, I wish you all a happy day, and I will see you next time.